Dr. Sam Amadi joins us from our studios in Abuja to shed some light on the directive they've given, as well as some of the other issues that have been raised by the discos. Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Amadi. Let's start off with the directive that the NERC gave to the discos about energy allotted to them. What is that about?
Thank you very much. I need to perspective. Talk about balance. What happened? Sometimes grid with the disco section, some companies do not receive what is the allocation. So we have a of energy. So a company, say, Yola, may not receive. Some companies are receiving more than they ought to have. Now, it can happen because of two reasons. One, that they themselves are taking more without being authorized by the system operator. Or, to maintain grid stability, the system operator allocates more energy to them. So that what creates imbalance trading. It was there before they hand over to the private owners. Now, what happens is that when you have imbalance, contrary to what the PR guy was saying here this morning, it's not a penalty. Kano Disco is supposed to have, let's say, 5% energy. Because we took more, they got less. So what the rule required then was that just a component, what we call fixed O&M component, that is fixed operation and maintenance charge, the lowest, you pay to Kano to compensate, because each disco has a fixed tariff based on the amount of energy it's supposed to receive. Some discos, like in Abuja, they were taking power themselves, taking more. And look at the problem. When you take power, you have to sell it. Commercial optimization. Then you have to pay. You have to pay for power used. You also have to compensate for those who have taken more. So we came out with an order that says, look, the first order says, if you are taking more because the system operator mandates you, you pay nothing. If you are taking more because you took the power, you have. If you are taking less because your system is down, you won't be compensated. If you are now taking less because transmission is a problem, you will be compensated. The last order we issued actually is to ensure that we ramp up capability. We discovered from the gas people that the system operator was asking them, the generators, not to increase capacity. When we hit 4,600, I saw a decline again to 4,500, 400. I said no. So we called a meeting, system operator, we called a meeting on the Transmission Company of Nigeria and the discos, and we now brought an innovative plan. We increased sharing the load allocation level to 4,500. And we said, every disco must take their power. If you can't take power, you must notify the system operator day ahead. If you notify, then there will be no problem. If you don't notify, you must sell the power and pay for power consumed. No more imbalance trading. You have to take their power. But this is a rider. It means that every disco must put its network ready to take power. Which means that the TSP, that the transmission service provider, if it fails to transfer power to disco because of its network frailty, it has to pay a penalty. So today, we have solved the problem of imbalance through the creative use of regulation by saying everybody collects. And now we now say the system operator is authority in the market, in the grid management. Whoever you give power must take that power. So, but let me correct one impression. It's not true, as the last speaker said. It's all about transmission service. The discos also have create imbalance because their network is not maintained. Some of them have their feeders out. Some of them don't maintain their feeders, and because the feeder is out, they can't take power. And then that power, because the grid manager must ensure there's no system collapse. He has to take that power to somebody to take, because otherwise there'll be system collapse.
Because so he says, I think you also heard that part where he says that after the meeting that they had with NERC, then some of those imbalance penalties were abolished, having complained.
No, the change is NERC oriented. I've had 5 meetings with different stakeholders in the last 3, 4, 5 days. After meeting with the Vice President, and I said, look, my concern, and I spoke with former GED gas, we don't want the nation to slump. The nation will slump if the discos are not enhancing their capacity to collect gas, to collect power. And they will not, if the generators are not, the discos are not taken, generators will ramp down. If the generators ramp down, gas suppliers will divert gas to alternatives. So we took this innovative approach to ensure that all the valves in the generators are up. so that the more gas will come in and will increase generation. But if we do not, if we didn't take the decision, the discos, because they are avoiding to pay compensation, because they may not be able to sell that power. You see, there's a management problem here. Some of these people need to go out and sell the power they receive, optimize the use, and pay for power consumed. So in order to, what will happen that some of them felt, well, I don't want to pay imbalance. And because I don't want to pay imbalance, they now reject power. But now, the imbalance is over, but the trouble is not over. It means you have to keep your network strong to receive every allocation for the system operator. Every allocation must be used because you contracted for 7,000 up to 8,000 megawatts. That was the basis in which we sold this asset. Unfortunately, we're not doing that much. So nobody can complain that they can't receive power because we are still doing less than 8,000 megawatts. And because we're doing less than 8,000 megawatts, every disco should receive its percentage of 4,500. If we get to 5,000, the SO should still give them power and they must receive power. Because we cannot be talking about lack of generation. Now we are getting improvement in gas supply. We used to say it's a gas problem. Now we are seeing there's frailty in the grid management. We are seeing that we need to improve and optimize the grid to receive more power. If we hit 6,000, will the discos be able to fully use that power, receive it? Are their feeders and the network in good condition to receive this power? And so what we're doing now is to drive the initiative back to them and say, we're going to give you this power, don't pay imbalance, but use that power, sell it, serve it to your customers, and pay for power consumed.
So if the discos get more than what they are usually allocated, they are no longer going to pay for it. That's what you're saying? Yes,
what you do is sell the power and pay for power consumed. Because the SO now has a mandate. First and foremost, we have increased the threshold to 4,500. Meaning, at 4,500, if your allocation is 11%, instead of being 11%, 20,500, it's now 11% of 4,500. After 4,500, the system operator is at discretion to allocate that power. But we have put a caveat. Say, system operator, we encourage you, give that power to whoever has the capacity through historical evidence of making full commercial use of that power. Now, in the next CEO meeting, we are going to review the load allocation because we are seeing increase in load demand in places like Lagos and Abuja. Maybe we'll give them more. And we're going to use your network capability to allocate you energy. And during the review of the tariff, what we allocate to you, if we see that you are underperforming, then we'll have to reduce your, increase your tariff because you are trading on lower energy. Or if you are doing more than your capacity, well, that means we will now lower your tariff because you have more energy to sell. So optimally, the point is this. We have done a new benchmark, we do a new allocation based on actual load demand today, and every disco will have the responsibility. If you want to have more power, improve your network. If you don't improve your network, you will have less power. And that means your tariff will go up and then you have problem with your consumers.
Mr. Amadi, is there a possibility that the NERC is a stumbling block to the discos in some way?
I heard that very well, and I laughed at it. But let me tell you, the disco should stop, should focus on what they're doing now, and this PR thing won't work. Take, for example, government debt. It was NRC that wrote to Mr. President, former president, and we said, look, ministries and government are owing a lot of money. And the president replied to me and said, ask the discos to first meter all the government agencies. And I like the question you asked them. Meter them, that was President Directive. Secondly, we also had a meeting with the general and we assembled to ask the discos, give us all your government debts, which we have sent to the government so that there can be deductions at source. The former government, also president, signed, asked the SGF to sign a circular saying they should, general should deduct all owing MDAs, the electricity bill should be deducted at source in their budget. Now that's one. Two, I agree that they should disconnect them. In fact, Abuja disconnected Federal Ministry of Power several times. NERC has been disconnected. Our premises where we are renting, we didn't complain. But look at this. You must follow due process. What's that? That means there are, the regulation on disconnection says notification. If people are contesting their bills, which is due process, you can't disconnect somebody who is contesting their bill. Have a closure of that contestation. Even other customers, sometimes people go and disconnect a community or a district because one person is owing. That's wrong. That's nowhere in this digital market where you should do mass disconnection. So the point is, due process, do some work, engage your customers. Please, let me put it on air. If they are owing you and they have gone through that regulatory process, it can disconnect them. NERC does not shield any debtor. This is a market that has to be based on responsibility to pay and responsibility to provide service. It's two-way. The discos should disconnect those who are owing after due process. The discos themselves should also follow this process and estimate their customers based on methodology. What we have seen is a flagrant violation of that methodology. We have cited Abuja. Abuja admitted that they had overbilled by over 3 times some of the customers, and they undertook to repay over 100 million naira for those overbilling. And the overbilling happened in defiance of clear methodology. We set up a methodology for estimated billing, which provides that, look, use the cluster, look at the energy going to the cluster, some for formulaic way of estimating ballpark figure that somebody who has no meter will consume. But what we have seen and admitted is deliberate effort. They say it's difficult to implement. Now give us a methodology. They're not giving. Of course, the incentive will be high to overbill customers. And our work is to protect the operator as well as the customer. So this new proposed capping of estimated billing is an attempt to use economic sense to deal with the incentive to estimate. So instead of customers being at the mercy of discos, discos should now go out and roll out their meter. And if you don't meter a customer, they want to benchmark through a scientific method that customer is paying close to exact what he or she could have paid if she had a meter. Now they are kicking against that, and we're looking at all the outcomes, all the implications. But the point is, there is a responsibility to serve. The discos have that responsibility. The issue, tariff is there to support them. And therefore, it doesn't really make sense to make it look like the regulator is out to hunt you. Why would we hunt the discos? They are critical to this industry. But the point is, the only way we can make, they have to work. They have to work. We can't allow them to exploit or to run over regulations. And so when NERC says, do this, you go on air and says, Amadi is like a loony trying to blow you out of the way. That's not true.